Is It Anyway, a podcast all about tabletop talk and topics. I'm JP and I'm joined by Becky.
Hi everyone.
And we're really excited to talk to Chris Priscott from Unfringed.co, who's designed the fantastic game Zuuli.
It's amazing.
Can't wait.
Really looking forward to chatting with
I know, yeah, it's going to be really awesome. I've had my kind of first taste of this at GridCon.
Yeah. Made everyone play and they loved it.
You did, but I really wanted to give it a go, and yeah, really pleased I did. So anyway, should we not waste any time and go and meet Chris?
Let's go on with it.
Let's do it. So we're joined today by Chris Priscott, who's from Unfringed and has designed the fantastic game Zuuli. So Chris, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah,
it's awesome to get you and spending some time with us, and we all appreciate it. And we've got Becky here, obviously, who's...
Everyone knows how much I rave about this game.
She's
so
like
it's,
your biggest fan.
And it's really great to finally meet you and see the face behind the cards.
I think you said, if you do an episode with Chris, like, if you pick anyone else but me, I'm going to kill them.
Yeah, there was
something
a little bit
like
of that.
Yeah. I did realise, because you're not first player anymore, right? So I was like, is Becky going to be on?
Yeah, I wouldn't have let anybody else through the door. So
that's the thing.
Yeah. There you go.
The expansion packs, like, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So we can kind of mix it up and do what we want. So great to get you on the show, Chris. And I think for the benefit of the listeners, I know I've kind of spoiled a little bit about one of the games that you've designed. But yeah, if you could introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are, that'd be great.
Yep. Hello, I'm Chris. I guess a little intro to myself. So I grew up in Devon in the UK. My main day job is a software engineer, but nice. I'm also a huge board game fan. I have been for a long time, different games. But yeah, always loved gaming of most kinds. But yeah, I guess most recently, I created, designed, and published my first game, Zuuli, last year. Kickstarted last year, and yeah, have had an amazing response from the community this year. And just started to fulfill its first expansion this week, actually.
Yeah, which Becky literally has in her hands.
I was very excited when it came through the letterbox. I knew exactly what it was straight away. And
Was it today? Yesterday?
It was yesterday. Yesterday it arrived. Yep. So we went straight in the box.
Which magnet did you get?
I got the little hippo.
Was that the preferred? Or?
I mean, the hippo and the red panda. I'm guessing there probably was a red panda one, maybe.
Yeah.
But both of those are brilliant. Yeah. So I was.
I think there's already trades happening on Facebook from some people that got the hippo but wanted the red panda. Yeah.
I can well imagine. Right, says Becky going on to eBay
right
now.
Yeah.
How do I get this goddamn red panda magnet? It's the most sought after item ever. But no, like, we always ask this question for our guests, and we always ask it actually for any kind of new players that come onto our podcast. But what is your favourite game? Always a hard one to answer, but if you had to pick your favourite game, what would it be?
So it's one that I actually don't play much at all anymore, but it's had like a big impact on my life, I think, and that is Magic the Gathering. So
a small game, yeah.
Yeah, that small game. So
it doesn't take over your life at all, or your entire house.
Exactly.
Or...
Yeah, I mean, I have boxes under the bed of decks and decks and decks. Like, it's bad, especially as I haven't played in probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. But yeah, I mean, I grew up with maybe 15 to 18, obsessed. We definitely didn't play it right then, but I was obsessed with the game, collecting the cards. So many things about it I loved. And then another phase, I guess, at my last job where we used to play at lunchtimes, and probably for about 4 years there, even more hooked and even more money spent on Magic the Gathering. But yeah, I think that has to be my favorite. Like, I think it ticks so many boxes for me that I don't think any other game has really ticked all of them.
Yeah. I've never played it. Was that bad? Like, I've never actually played Magic.
I have played, but I had a deck curated for me. I had a little mirror deck, partially because in my complete normal style, I really liked the artwork, and the mirrors were really cute. So I had a little mirror deck made for me.
The deck was rubbish. But
I mean, I didn't ever win, but then when do I ever? So that's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games, right, that I think it must be so hard for anyone interested nowadays to get into it, because the learning curve is so steep, and they've tried to make it better with these kind of intro packs and stuff. And I think that is great. But then you go to Friday Night Magic, and then suddenly there's 1,000 different keywords, and it's hard. But I mean, I think it's worth it. I definitely, if there's any interest there, I always recommend people to invest the time to learn it. But like, yeah, it takes over your life, much like kind of Warhammer and this kind of stuff. I think it's a similar hobby in terms of the obsession and the cost. Yeah,
it seems to sink its claws into people really quickly and very, very well.
Yeah.
In my experience of it, anyway.
Yeah, great. Okay, so what games are you enjoying like right now then? So obviously Magic's been your favourite. You haven't played it for 3 or 4 years. What do you enjoy?
So it's actually the one we played most, me and my wife, Sophie, have played a lot recently. It's something I picked up at Essen. So I was very restrained at Essen this year. I actually only brought back
well done.
3 games, I think.
Wow.
One of them being Mindbug. So I don't know if you've heard of Mindbug.
Yeah.
It's I guess this has the kind of Magic crossover because it's designed by Richard Garfield, who did one of the original designers of Magic. And yeah, it's really got its hooks into us because I guess it's a very simplified Magic-esque game where you have monsters and you're battling each other, but the thing I love the most is that all of these creatures are ridiculously overpowered. You look at these cards, and in Magic the Gathering, they would be banned straight away because they're silly levels of power. But you have these mind bugs that allow you to. You have 2 of them, and you can choose to steal an opponent's creature when they play it. You can only do that twice. So even though you have these kind of insanely overpowered decks, timing that mind bug to take something that I guess is more overpowered than your overpowered stuff or gives you the advantage. Like it's really nice balancing mechanism. We're pretty hooked on that right now.
Yeah, sounds fun as well.
Had you sort of researched it beforehand, or did you just see it randomly and it sort of caught your attention? Or
I had a recommendation from someone at Essen, and I went along to try it out, but I didn't manage to give it a go. But I kind of saw the concept, and I talked to the guy at the stand, and I was like,
you realised.
I think this is going to click, right? Yeah.
You know when you know, don't you?
Yeah. Definitely.
And of course, I went expansion, bought the expansion.
Oh, this
the
is
Black Edition box.
Speaking JP's language. Then, if there's an expansion, he will have it.
Yeah, I like to collect stuff.
Yeah, that's part of the hobby, isn't it? It's not just the playing the games; it's the acquisition and the shiny version, and
doesn't matter if it's good or not. The expansion, it's being procured and in the collection, so that I know.
And something about these events, right? Like you get all of these. I didn't know it was a thing, but people issuing these like promo cards. So like there was a promo card available there and stuff. So like, I can imagine with all the events now on where they're there. I'm going to go visit them to see if I can get the promo card and probably buy their next expansion and do all of this stuff.
Got to catch them all. Yeah, once
exactly.
It's got to be had.
Oh, awesome. You have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't heard of
it.
Kerley might enjoy that then because he's ex-Magic player,
Yeah. So Kerley was really heavily into Magic, like lots of people.
Yeah.
So I think that sounds right up his street.
Yeah, it's only 2-player, but it plays 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Like, and you can just play a few games, and you don't need to build a deck because everyone shares the same deck. Like,
that sounds like another one of my favourite games that you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's kind of move on to the main topic then, which is you, Chris. It's all about you. So kind of what was the genesis then of Unfringed? Like, how did you coding one day, building lots of applications and websites or whatever you do in your work life, and think, you know what, I'm actually going to go and design something. How does it start?
So I guess Zuuli was not necessarily my first kind of dip into game design. Maybe a few years before Zuuli, I don't know how long ago now, 10 years or so ago, like I did a little bit of Android development, made a couple of like little games on mobile. None of them took off. It was a little bit of a hobby. But I really got a kind of a buzz for doing that and designing these kind of mechanics and stuff, and learning about how people play and kind of what is interesting for people and what keeps them hooked to the game and stuff. So, but yeah, it was actually with Zuuli. It was when was it? 2020, I think, when everyone was locked in. I spent a lot of time playing video games because there wasn't much else to do. And then I just decided that, I mean, we were playing on Board Game Arena a fair amount, and I love drafting games. So Sushi Go, Draftosaurus, these kind of games. But I wanted a little bit more from it. And and I guess I kind of had this idea kind of floating around. I'm a big animal lover, so kind of sketched out this idea, and there was never the intention to ever bring it to what it is now. I just spent the afternoon writing in my notepad all of this stuff, and then the same day drew it out on a piece of A4 paper, just the names of these animals, these enclosures. And we played our first game, Sophie and I, and there was something that clicked then, where I was like, you know what, this is actually this has something to it. I'm enjoying playing this, and this is just like something that I've created straight away. And it kind of exploded from there, I guess. I kind of spent most of my evenings, and weekends, I would be like thinking about cards and thinking about what I can take away to make it a smoother experience. Making print errors, printing tiny, tiny little cards of Zuuli accidentally. And then I guess it got to a point where I had a version that we were enjoying playing, and I thought, okay, because I've put all of this energy kind of in, let's kickstart it. Let's see if people are interested in it. And then they were, and the ball has just kept rolling. I never had a grand plan of like, I'm gonna make this game and I'm gonna get it international and all of this stuff. It kind of just like, okay, what's next? What's next on the list? What's
snowball
next?
kind of effect.
Yeah. And I think that was the thing about, like, I guess it being a card game, is that you have that option a little bit because it's kind of lower cost. It's not as much of an investment to design. I mean, I don't know how these people design Euro games. Like, it hurts my brain to think about what needs to go into balancing that and doing all of this stuff and the cost, right, to do it initially. So
I mean, tell me about it. Like, we play some heavy stuff. You know, we play some Vital Lacerda games. We play Mind Clash games, and it just blows me away how somebody can create that and actually it be an enjoyable experience, and that your brain is literally melting outside of your ear hole. How are these guys like geniuses? Like, seriously, how do you even contemplate that? But I'm always in awe of kind of designers in general. The fact that they've taken that idea and that concept and actually pushed it through into the product,
a real product,
actually something you can get your hands on in the physical world, in the physical space. And I just think that's something beautiful about that.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming with your background, Chris, with kind of software engineering, is that you've got a very iterative and agile mindset in just, you know, doing a little bit, release, and that's kind of probably maybe how you approach this, right? Just fine tuning, keep tweaking, keep doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're exactly right in that, like, that design process. I mean, the original Zuuli plan, I mean, I have my notebook, and it had like, I mean, it was pretty much, now I think about it, it was almost designing like Arc Nova. And then I realized, you know what, maybe Arc Nova is not a good game to design as my first game. So all of this breeding component and all of this stuff, which I jotted down as like, oh, this would be cool, kind of all came out because, like you said, like they got to that point where it's like, I want to complete this whole cycle. So I want to take it from this initial design and at least get something that then sells, and then I'll have completed that cycle. And I guess that's kind of what's happened, right? So, like, I guess the first Zuuli edition was only a very small run of 500 as a kind of test for that, right? To see, do people like it? And now we've ordered a larger run, which will hopefully be out soon if all the admin bits get checked off. But ball rolling kind of thing. Yeah, like you said.
So it sounds like quite a lot of this, I could imagine you kind of drawing the cards out on pieces of paper and kind of using that as like a testing kind of thing. What was the most surprising thing about the process of getting Zuuli from that kind of little germ of an idea in your mind to an actual physical card? What thing in the whole journey surprised you the most?
That's a good question. I think it's a little bit like, so I love talking to people about subjects which they're super passionate about, because a lot of the time you realize a lot of these subjects appear like an iceberg, because you only see a small part of this huge iceberg that's hidden under the water. And I think it's a little bit like with Zuuli. One thing I can think of is like the card stock, or what you want your cards to be made of. And I guess I went in naively to think, well, I mean, it's a playing card, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
make it out of cards.
Yeah. I'll have 50 playing cards, and they'll go in a box, and they'll have a rules leaflet. And then when you realize, when you're talking to these manufacturers and stuff to get quotes, like, I mean, they're full professionals, right? They need to know the weight of the card, what finish you want, how many colors you're using, are you going to have bleed on your cards, all of this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that was it's kind of like that iceberg under the water, is that suddenly it's this huge world which I didn't even know existed. Which is fascinating. I mean, I found the whole process an amazing learning experience to learn about all of those kind of things and stuff.
There you go. So having played the game, Chris, and I actually played it last weekend was my first ever play, and we promised him, we said, Becky, let's get some games of Zuuli in. Speaking with Chris, I cannot speak to Chris who've never played this game, because that's just, you'd shoot me. So we had a game, and then we immediately played a second game and a third game and a fourth game, because obviously it plays so quick. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the one rule that I kind of wanted to dig into is, it wasn't in the rule book, it wasn't explained thematically, is what happens to those animals. What happens to the animals that you don't fit into the zoo?
Well, what doesn't happen to them is, as someone at UK Games Expo suggested, which is I should have some grinder enclosure where the animals get put in the grinder. That's definitely not what happens to the animals.
Good. I'm glad you said that.
I like to think I tend to say they run away.
Excellent. That's what I was saying. I said they just, wander off and they do their own thing. Yeah. Nothing bad happens to these animals. They're just minding their own business.
Fair enough.
Exactly. So take that, JP.
So for those that kind of obviously don't know what we're talking about with Zuuli and animals and where do they go, maybe that's a good segue into saying, what is Zuuli? For those that have never heard of this game, what is it?
So Zuuli is the fierce and friendly card game. So the premise of Zuuli is you are collecting enclosures, animals, and upgrades, and you are trying to build the highest scoring wildlife park you can. And how you do that is you have a couple of phases. You have a drafting phase, and you're drafting all of those three types of cards. You take one, pass it on, very simple draft. And then everyone develops their park together based on what cards they've collected. And they do that by placing their enclosures down, and then you figure out how to place what animals in what enclosure. And that's where the kind of puzzle solving or kind of crunchiness comes in, because animals have different requirements. So there has to be enough space in the enclosure, there has to be the right habitat in the enclosure, and you have two types of animals, fierce and friendly animals, and friendly animals can be kept with any other friendly animals, and fierce animals can only be kept with fierce animals of the same name. And so you kind of, you do this, you place what animals you can, the animals run away, the ones you can't place, and you then score your park for that year. Animals have different values, and you do that 3 times. So unlike some other drafting games, kind of like Sushi Go, where you'd then clear the table and you'd go again, in Zuuli, your park stays persistent. So in the second year, you do the same pick and pass phase. You get more animals, more enclosures, and then you build on top of your existing park. And that can mean moving animals, placing new upgrades in existing enclosures. And so you kind of can maximize your points every year. So you can kind of invest in your future, or you can go big at the beginning, but then not have any space in future years.
That's what always happens to me every time. Every time.
I get too greedy, and then someone gives me an elephant.
Grizzly bears is what it was at the weekend. Grizzly bears just kept coming around like, oh, darn it, not them again.
Not in the grinder.
Not in the grinder. Absolutely not in the grinder.
You tend to one of the fascinating things I found when watching early people play actually was that, so you have the elephant, which is I think the biggest animal still, 6 space. But it's worth 5 points. And actually, when you see a lot of more, I guess, people who are in the board gaming hobby are more new to the hobby, they tend to see that animal as 5 points is the highest value animal. I'll kind of take it. And then realize quite quickly that, actually, I actually don't have anywhere for these elephants. And like you said, as you play a bit more, sometimes they end up being left over. And so, there's a lot of times when we play 2-player where maybe we both pass each other an elephant, and that's last bit of the game.
You know it's coming. It's like, who's going to take this thing, or am I going to end up with it? Because I've not provisioned for this large animal. But no, I mean, there you go. That's the rules teach. Pretty much. That's it.
That exact thing happened when I was. I bought a copy for a friend of mine who listens to the podcast. So hi, Noemi, if you're listening. She heard about it and thought it sounded amazing, so I bought her a copy, and I taught her how to play. And we had big animals at the end. It's like, this is what happens. You get very excited about your lovely animals, and then realise, there's no home for them.
This is where I guess I'm not sure if you've played the expansion yet, but with the hippo, it's a pretty big, also worth high points, but less easy to place because it's fierce most of the time, but sometimes friendly now.
Depending on what you pair it with and what you do with it. That's great. So what's it been like then, obviously, with you going through the whole kind of crowdfunding experience and getting the feedback that you have? I mean, that must be quite overwhelming, I say, because you've got people going, come onto the podcast, Chris, and talk to us about the game. And I know we're not your first, and you've done a few already. And what's that feel like as a chap?
It's extremely heartwarming. It really is. Even when the expansion has been getting out this week, seeing the posts of people posting it and saying they played their first game and they really enjoyed it, it makes all of the kind of any lows that there are, and there are lows in that process sometimes, with anything, but it makes it all worth it. It's amazing to hear people talk positively about it, something you've created. Is awesome. And especially at the Games Expo, when we had people turn up and say they were recommended it by someone because they loved it and they needed to come and play Zuuli. I mean, it's hard to comprehend at the time as well, but it's just extremely heartwarming. I'm very thankful for all of those people, including yourself, that enjoy it and have bought a copy. It's awesome.
Well, the great thing is we played our game on the Saturday, wasn't it, GridCon, and we had Rob, who also on the podcast, and I'd say more of a casual gamer than some of us. He literally went to the retailer that was there, and they had a bundle of copies of Zuuli to sell. And he picked one up. So,
they didn't have a bundle after we'd left.
No, I think we cleared them out, didn't we?
I bought 2 more and he bought another one.
So we've got a podcast with Chris. We need to keep buying these.
It's just, I find it's just such an easily accessible game. So my mother-in-law loves to play games, but I don't think she'd really enjoy the kind of crunchy level of some of the stuff. So, we took Zuuli round and she absolutely loved it. So awesome. I'm not going to be able to give her that for a Secret Santa because I didn't pick her as Secret Santa, but she's going to have the game anyway.
There you go.
I think that's what surprised me with my first play. So I didn't really know too much about it. I know Becky was kind of mentioning it, but it's hard to comprehend games sometimes until you get your hands on it and experience the play of the game. And it's, as you said, that puzzle element of, I mean, drafting's one of the most fun mechanics ever. When you put drafting in the game, it's always just fun because you go, no, I'm going to pass you this.
And, I want this, and also, haha, I want you to have that one.
And then you get a lot of swearing and banter around the table. But when you've got that collection of cards, and then you're trying to go, right, how's this going to work? And you go, oh my God, what have I done? I miscalculated. And that was the surprise, the bit I actually really, really kind of enjoyed and did not expect in that kind of weight of game. And that was why I kind of said, let's play it again. Let's play it again.
Awesome.
Let's play it again.
Yeah, that's a lot of what, like, I guess I had two things going in for like the design that I wanted to hit, and one was that is a kind of a game that is accessible to most people, but also has that strategy where more experienced gamers can pick it up and go, oh, you know what, actually this can take some thinking about, and I'm not sure necessarily even that I have the top score here. And I think whereas also for less experienced gamers, they enjoy that puzzle in the same kind of level. They're just not trying to optimize for the maximum score. So it's great to hear that it's ticked that box, because that was one of the things. And also introducing drafting, because I did find that a lot of, I just love it as a mechanic, like you said, and any kind of simultaneous play, especially for people who aren't completely sold by board games yet.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're having to wait for your turn, sometimes that can put people off. And being able to have that simultaneous play, and with such a cool mechanic, I don't know, I wanted to introduce more people to that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, because when you're trying to sort your enclosures out and your animals, your mind's got like in full-on active mode, isn't it? It's like you haven't got brain space to work out what everyone else is doing at that point. Like, right, make this work. How are we going to get this thing?
That can't go in there. But actually, if I move this to here.
And I love that part about it. It's really interesting you saying you were trying to appeal to the kind of both sides of the kind of board gaming sort of market, and I think the kind of artwork really comes into that. So on your website you say, don't let the sort of cutesy looks fool you, that this is an easy game. How sort of deliberate was the kind of child friendly choice of art style?
It was definitely designed in a way that wouldn't necessarily be, when you look at kind of a lot of board games, I guess a lot of them kind of look kind of similar in style. I wanted it to stand out as different, because I guess if you're not already playing those games, then why would you pick up a small box game that kind of looks the same as that? Because you might think it's the same kind of thing. And I think there has been, it kind of splits people, right? So some people think it's too, not necessarily childish, but maybe a little bit too bright and too cheery, even though there's the kind of puzzlier element inside. But then again, they may, I guess maybe then it's not necessarily the right game for them. But when they play it, sometimes they go, oh, actually, this is quite fun.
And that's exactly the kind of response we've had in our. I mean, I love
your husband.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and he was going to give it a go because I was going to make him anyway.
But
when his first opinion was like, oh, this is going to be too easy or too lightweight, and then he actually, I mean, within the first round, he realised he could instantly see. But then he is like an efficiency machine person, so he could instantly see. I see how this is a nice challenging kind of but easily accessible for someone who doesn't want to put that level of thinking in it. You can just pick the nice little animals that you like,
and hopefully still place them right, and hopefully still get a score.
Absolutely, So I really like how it.
Well, it's multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I think that again, that's the surprise for me. So I can play that with my son, and he'd have a good time getting animals, and still probably laughing that he's given me the elephant that I can't. But he could easily pick that up and have fun with it. And I could not go, oh, I don't want to play this game, because there are certain games that I'll play with my kids because they're my kids, and they want to have fun. But there's certain games that, because when you're in the hobby as much as we are, sometimes you just have that moment of going, oh, really?
I don't want to play this one again.
I don't want to play this anymore. It doesn't excite me. It's not fun anymore.
I think anything which is kind of that almost like take that. A lot of kids' games seem to have like this kind of take that mechanic as well, which can sometimes lead to these really long games where you're. I know. I think like Uno, and I like Uno. Like it's quite fun to play, but like. These games can go on for a long time.
Yes, they can.
If you don't have the right crowd, if you make someone pick up 16, they don't have the best time playing that kind of game. So
with the wrong rules, I might add. With the wrong.
But I play with those rules too. So I like them. Yeah.
Oh, how dare you?
Oh, I like it when you get the double down
when you pick the half the deck up. You mean? And
it's good.
It's
good.
Might be never to play Uno with you.
It's not just house rules anymore, is it? It's like country rules. Like that is the UK ruling. it's not what they say it should be. But
it's evolved into what is the new meta of Uno, which is kind of weird, and everyone thinks, what?
I think it just sort of speaks volumes about us as a country. Like, we like that kind of double,
punishment.
Or like that. Like, you know, absolutely take that. No soft quarter here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Is Chris thinking, right, Zuuli, the punishing edition? How do we have lots to take that? Now I'm joking.
Yeah. What kind of expert tips can you give me to manage at some point to beat my husband at a game ever, but specifically Zuuli would be quite nice.
Yeah, she needs some inside tips.
Yeah,
Chris.
I mean, I was going hard with the old Tree Frogs Vivarium kind of, little zone, but now you've got your red pandas kind of thrown in. I think that might have to be my new.
So it's hard to say with the new version, because with the expansion, you do have some very high. So, for example, if you do get the red pandas and you can expand a vivarium or an open air island, you're looking at like the highest point score out of anything. I think maybe someone will find something higher. And even the hippos, actually, if you put 2 hippos in the savannah, that's 10 points. That's 30 points across the whole game. So it's hard with the new one. I guess with the old version, the tactic I always find is knowing almost like the meta, kind of like Magic, I guess, is that if someone realizes, I don't know, a grizzly bear vivarium is a good combo. Yeah. What's also a great combo is like 4 lions in a savannah. That's also very high scoring. And they don't want lions because it's a fierce card and it's going to mess up because they've picked the small enclosures. So I think typically it's less. I don't know. I mean, I get beaten by Sophie all the time, so I'm not sure I'm the best person to say.
Get Sophie on. Let's go on.
Yeah, exactly. But it's definitely like, it's almost like playing your opponent, which is harder to do in more than 2-player. But in 2-player, definitely like playing your opponent as opposed to playing a necessary like fixed strategy.
Yeah. Because he got, I think, 108.
Did
in our last game. Yeah.
Oh wow! Without the expansion?
No, it was with the expansion. With the expansion. So you have an extra
card. Have to start being friends with him at some point. It's getting ridiculous now.
Yeah. I think it's one of those. It's one of those ones that it's like the red panda. I love how it changes the game now, because if you realize you have a red panda, but you don't want it because it's not worth very much on its own, but they already have one on the board, you know that you're handing them a lot of points there. So you do kind of, it has maybe added a little bit of hate drafting-ish to it. But not so much, because you can also get one and hope that another one comes up.
You get that third one.
But it makes you pay more attention to other people's enclosures, which is, you should be doing anyway, right? Because like, we don't want to be passing you all these high scoring animals, and it's probably what I didn't do enough of on my first game, because I was literally just trying to learn how to not put animals in the fake grinder. That's not the grinder, or make them run away, shall we say? Interesting.
Will you do a sort of send in pictures of your custom card designs at some point, maybe on Instagram or on a website? Because I'd love to be able to get some ideas of,
So there's a bunch on the Zuuli Facebook group. There's a bunch on there, and there was a thread started, I think, on the Zuuli like Board Game Geek page, but I'm not sure how many populated. But definitely, I should organize something more formal so that people can post it, because I mean, some of the ideas are incredible. Like some stuff that I'd never even thought about. Like for example, I think even today there was a cheetah. And someone suggested a cheetah, and they said that how it should score is that it has maybe a base value, I don't know, of one or 2, but then every empty space in the enclosure adds 1 more point, because cheetahs like to be in the enclosure with lots of space. Like just stuff like that, which I hadn't even thought of. But I mean, they haven't designed it yet, but I definitely encourage them to jot it down on one of their cards, draw it out, have a play, see how it plays. Because I love seeing that kind of stuff. So definitely I'll try and set up something more formal so people can share their ideas and all of this.
It's a nice touch, that putting those cards and go,
really like
have a go yourself. Just put some things in, have a test, have a play.
But that's a software designer in you, isn't it? It's kind of, try this new little kind of tweak in the system.
It's definitely, and I do need to find a way to maybe get more, because I've had people ask, like, can I get some more, because I want to add these more, including I think one guy's little girl who saw that flamingos always hang out in flocks of, I think, 77, and so therefore we need 77 flamingos in the deck or whatever, or they're worth 77 points or something like this. So I love that. It's definitely like something I found people, I think all of us as board gamers always think a little bit like, oh, like if this rule was slightly different, then maybe this would be a bit more fun, or if I could add this part to this game, then this would be really cool. It was part of like hopping onto that and letting people tweak the game how they'd like and stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's quite nice to say, look, I've created this baseline, and it's like, but now it's a sandbox. Go and play, go and tinker, go and see what you can come up with, and then the community kind of takes the game on, then, doesn't it? And that's how you kind of drive longevity in games, is when the community, and you'll know this being a Magic player, like communities make the games. So if you can kind of do that with Zuuli, and especially like making it really family friendly as well, and getting the family involved, and then kids are coming back from school with their facts about the animals they've learnt about. Brilliant. Like how educational, and it's bloody fun.
Awesome.
And you can play it with them and not be bored out of your mind, hopefully. When you play it.
Which is what it is. Excellent. So what we've done, Chris, is we've asked a few of the listeners to say, what do you want to ask Chris, or what should we ask Chris if when we get you on the show? And so one of them is actually from, I think it came in on our Facebook page, from Favourite Foe. What's next from the Zuuliverse? And you're probably going to say I can't tell you because it's a secret. But what can you tell us, if you can tell us anything?
So I guess hi Tora first. I know Favourite Foe well.
There you go.
So next so I think the run up to Christmas is kind of decided. It's fulfilling the mini expansion. I think we're like 85% fulfilled, which is great already. And then the last bunch will go out before Christmas, hopefully. And then the second edition, because the first edition has sold out. So I do have the second edition, but it's requiring some admin work before I can release it. But fingers crossed, that's next week. And then I guess once it's released, trying to get that to people before Christmas. It's getting a little bit late, but hopefully it will be good for like a little stocking filler or something. I guess next. So I always wanted to do the expansion, and I'm very happy that was kind of driven by the second edition having space for more cards. And so then I took the opportunity to go, let's not just put promo cards in there. Let's make an actual kind of expansion and new animals. So I always wanted to do that. I think it's tricky in low numbers for like another expansion. So hopefully if this second edition sells well, then that puts us in a good place to sell an expansion, another expansion, because I'd love to do it. I mean, I get ideas, like I said, from the community all the time. And there's so many animals with really cool mechanics that I could add and stuff. So I think there's nothing firmly planned. I have ideas jotted down that I could make, and maybe even some slightly less, maybe like new animals, but maybe some kind of objectives that change each game. So this was also kind of a suggestion from someone that you could have goals. I don't know, some goals, like you draw 3 cards and those are your 3 goals, and maybe they add a few bonus points, and maybe if you're the first to achieve it, you get 5, and if you're the second person to achieve it. So maybe something like that, which could add a little extra level on top. I mean, I like to draw from Magic as well, so I love all the Magic cards for like that flip round, or maybe you tick off bits down the side of the card, and I think you could add some really interesting Zuuli cards where you have that mechanic in there as well. So
sounds great.
Stuff in the pipipeline.
Oh, she's excited.
For that.
Yeah. I mean, what would you like to see? I guess
that's a great question. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm here for the cuteness of the animals, so
more cute animals.
More cute animals, and I really like how you kind of, for example, like the grizzly bear, you score more if he's on his own, because grizzly bears like being on their own. So I really like how you've kind of put that extra thought in and actually made them realistic is not
slightly
the right word, is it? But thematic, exactly. So and like you were just saying about the kind of flamingo idea and having them in flocks, that's really sweet. I really like that. So if that could become a reality, that'd be
more of that stuff. I mean, I would love to do that, and it definitely comes in when I designed the expansion. The hippo is also it's not fully true to reality, but I did hear something about how hippos, when they're on land, they're quite dangerous, and if they're just on land, they're quite dangerous. Whereas when they're in the water, they feel a bit safer. So I thought, okay, maybe if they have both available to them, they are less dangerous in the enclosure, and therefore they can be friendly. Whereas if they're just in one or the other, they're less happy. Yeah, I mean, even like one that I'd love to do, to be honest, which I guess the first time talking about this is I love insects as well.
Yeah.
Designing a whole game around insects. I would love to do, but I'm not sure it sells so well because a lot of people don't like insects. However, I'd love to do something like a card which flips after a certain amount of time. So let's say you get a caterpillar in year 1, maybe it's only worth 1 point, but actually in year 2 you turn it around, and now it's a butterfly, and it's worth
that's really good.
X points or something.
I'd
love to introduce stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
That sounds awesome.
That does sound cool.
Yeah. Well, we've watched this space. It's all cool.
Yeah.
Anything not in the Zuuliverse? Like, so talking Unfringed now, so any other kind of things that you're, without obviously spoiling anything, because you're probably still in the melting pot. Are you actually actively working on other designs?
I guess when I can, I guess the main attraction when I started making this was the design aspect. So I love designing the games, and then everything else kind of took over. I have tried to find a little bit of time for design stuff. The one at the moment which I'm most excited about is themed around a place in Devon. So which could be interesting, slightly maybe roll and righty set in Devon. But let's see.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it's finding a little time to balance that between getting Zuuli out there and designing this thing. But I would love to have something ready to test at Games Expo, but I'm not promising anything on that front.
We'll be there, won't we? We will be there. So
we're going to be there next year.
Awesome.
And also, hopefully, we get to Essen. Hopefully, we actually got hotels booked for Essen.
Hotels booked for Essen. I don't think I'll be working, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, new job and all that.
Yeah, I've got a new job recently. This is not very exciting podcast, but
it's staying in though.
That's great news.
It's still in the same job. It's still being as a nurse in theatres, but I won't be working weekends or nights. So I can suddenly see these vistas of possibility.
You've got an NHS job that you can get the weekends off, which is
unheard of.
Yeah, that sounds like nicely done. Very
I'm
nicely
excited
done.
about that.
There we go. So we also had another question in from Jason Frisby from the Meeple Minded podcast, which I think we did a recording with those guys. And they said they'd love to know, after obviously on their show you're talking about it, when yourself and Jason played Zuuli, you switch playing with the blind draft so you can't see what your opponent's plans are.
Yeah.
And how did you find that?
I mean, hello, Jason. Thanks for the question. I mean, that game was one of my favorite games I've played of Zuuli. It's funny how we didn't know each other before this, and actually we both played, and I could tell we both not necessarily wanted to win. It wasn't even competitive, but we were very quiet, we kind of played quite seriously, and it was just a really good game. It was really close down to the wire, and we did do this kind of blind draft. So rather than taking one and then showing it to everybody at the same time, we played it blind, which I guess is more like Magic Draft, which means you have to kind of use your memory a little bit more. So you have to kind of remember what you had in your hand and then what gets passed back to you and this kind of stuff. I think I would. So to answer this question, I guess I don't play it personally with a blind draft. I kind of like the less thinky part of the draft. But I do like the idea of exploring a competitive rule set, let's say, of Zuuli. So even if it's a tournament kind of mode, the idea of okay, as a competitive Zuuli, you would play best of 3, and these are some rules that you would tweak in order to change the variance a little bit. I don't know. I like the idea of a tournament of Zuuli is really it's quite exciting if that ever happens. So I think
I've just realised that we play competitive Zuuli.
You've taught me blind draft.
Okay.
I've only ever played like that. And that's probably, I'm going to blame Kerley because he's not here to defend himself.
Because he's played Terraforming Mars.
He's played Terraforming Mars and he's a Magic player. I think it was probably automatic to him to draft blind. So that That's opened up new worlds now.
I think, and it's one of those things. It does add an extra level.
Yeah.
But with the accessible side, it's nice that you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think even in Magic, actually, I think I might be wrong here, but I think in competitive Magic draft, I think once you've taken it, you're not even allowed to look at what you've taken.
Okay, so we do that. So
yeah.
we play, we draft it blind, but then you sort of have a little sneaky. Oh, did I get that enclosure?
I've got an enclosure. I've got 2 of those already.
Yeah.
I'm going to see how that works now. I'm going to
try it. Yeah, there you go. That should have been my tip. Play an open draft. Yeah.
Read the rules properly and play it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, so the final question we got from our listeners is actually from James McCann, who's at Board Game Jimmy on Instagram, and also a big fan of yours and the game. So he says, do you feel the success of Zuuli puts you under additional pressure? First time design, first time, it's hit, everyone's loving it.
I think that there was definitely pressure recently. So while I had stock, it was more like I was just so happy that it was selling and people were enjoying it that it didn't feel so much like pressure to get it to people. There wasn't so much pressure there necessarily. When it ran out, I would have liked to have had stock already being created, but it went out of stock quicker than I expected. And then Christmas was coming up, so there was a certain amount of pressure recently, and there is at the moment, to kind of make sure it's out before Christmas, because obviously Christmas is a big selling time for everything, right? But yeah, I don't know whether that would be different. Yeah, I guess that would be different if it wasn't successful. But yeah, I think, again, with these kind of highs and lows, when at the moment like this week, when you have the highs of seeing people enjoy the game, it doesn't feel like pressure. Even if there is pressure, it doesn't feel like it, because you're just enjoying seeing all of these posts come in. So yeah, it can be sometimes, but not enough that I can't manage yet. Maybe with 2 or 3 games on the go, it might get there. But yeah, let's see.
Fair enough. So Jimmy's pretty cool. He's very cool. So he's not under pressure yet.
Anyway, it was nice to meet Jimmy at the
we did.
at GridCon. It was really nice to say
hello. Nice. Yeah.
Got to meet Jimmy, which is fantastic. So thanks for answering those, Chris. So as we kind of warm down to the end, we have some episodes that we kind of do reoccurring called niche number ones. So niche number ones are essentially like our they're not really top 10s, but they're kind of our favourite game in really weird, strange circumstances.
Alternate top 10.
Thing. As I say, I think Adrian said they're less helpful than top 10s, but they're always good fun to do. They're great episodes. So we like to ask our guests some of these, because it just gets them thinking about certain stuff. So we've got a few here. I'm going to just randomise this and throw one at you and see what you've got. So what's your favourite game you've bought on a whim?
Favorite game I bought on a whim, possibly, at least recently, Mindbug.
Yeah,
I didn't know too much about it, so yeah, that's probably the one most recent. And also Corinth. So Corinth is like a roll and write. And also I didn't know anything about that, and it was actually our first roll and write, I think, that we'd ever played. And yeah, we both fell in love with it. So yeah, we really like that.
I've not played Corinth, but during the lockdown of 2020, I think the publisher released Corinth print and play for free. To kind of help people, who are stuck at home. There's something to do, guys, which I thought was a lovely thing for them to do. And I actually downloaded it, but I haven't yet kind of printed out and given it a go. But I've heard good things. So
it's nice. It's I think we've played it so much that we've found the ultimate strategy now, and because it doesn't have kind of objectives or stuff, like it's not as much fun anymore, but we'd still give it we've solved it. But I mean, we played lots of that game, so it's well worth it. It's got a lot of playability in there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Go on, Becky.
So another one that we've got here, what is a favourite game that you don't own?
Favorite game that I don't own, possibly something I played at Essen Acropolis. So I don't know if you played Acropolis yet.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
That was
very good.
That was very good, and amazingly, again, not overly complex, at least on the surface, but a lot of kind of hidden strategy there as to how you build your city up. And I'm not sure why I didn't pick it up. I should have picked it up, but I haven't. So
I can hear that remorse in your voice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We all have that, don't we? We all have that.
Yeah.
He said 3 games and no more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's finish off on one more then. So, what's your favourite game that has the most useless component?
I
remember answering this one for me.
I'll have to hear yours afterwards. Yeah. I think for me, I wouldn't call it useless. So we picked up Tapestry a while back for a lot, and it had a very high price tag, and it is a very good game. But we really enjoyed playing it. However, you can see why it has the high price tag is because there is it 8 or 10 like painted? I'm not sure
12.
if they're painted, but is it 12?
I think it might be a few more, but maybe even 16 in the base game. Yeah.
So there's a lot of miniatures, and I'm not sure it's painted or the coloured plastic or whatever it is. And they're awesome. They're really nice looking miniatures, but I think what they add to the game, I could have, if it half the price of the game, I could have done without them potentially.
Could have been tiles, couldn't it? It could have been tiles on the grids.
Yeah. So I'm not sure they're useless, but I think it's like it didn't add enough to the game probably for me to
I totally share that with miniatures. I mean, I'm all one for a lovely little nice model or trinket. That's absolutely great, but miniatures don't add enough to me to make it worth that kind of bigger investment.
But you don't get the choice in that
You don't get the
game,
choice. No,
it's what you get, isn't it? So
and this is where I like kind of the Kickstarters nowadays, that you have the multiple editions, because sometimes, like, if you can get it cheaper and you don't have the miniatures, you just have a little cardboard pop out. That's fine if you're not so much if you're not in for the miniatures and you can get it at a good price, and if you want the miniatures, pay some more. Like, I kind of like that with Kickstarter, that you can do that, and not just with miniatures, but also I'm a sucker for upgraded components as well for games that I like.
We're speaking my language here, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think most people are a sucker for it, but I think what's made me realise, and I think I probably talked about this previously, but Dune Imperium is my example that I go to of. You've got Dune Imperium, great game, love it.
Yeah.
You've got the deluxe box version. It's not even the version of the game. It's just basically all the miniatures. There's a big box. There's storage in it and other things that you can probably use. But it's like 50 quid. And it's like, really, I don't need it.
How do I justify it?
Because actually, Dune Imperium, nothing wrong with it. All right, it's got cubes. You use cubes as your troops.
Cubes, bar humbug. Sorry, no, can't have that.
It works, and I'm fine with it, and I'm cool with it. And so I keep telling myself. But it's
one of those things, right? That it like, if you got it as a birthday present and someone bought you the upgraded components, you'd be very happy about that.
But Christmas is coming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah. Mine was, just to go back. Mine was Champions of Midgard.
Okay.
And it's actually, there's a useless component in the base game, and there's a useless component in Valhalla, I think, one of the expansions. So in the base game, you get something to denote what colour you are on your player board, which is kind of completely pointless because you've all got coloured meeples and everyone knows you're red and everyone knows you're green. But I can't remember what it is, but something sits on your board to say, I am red, everyone.
Yeah.
Like you haven't already argued about it at the start before the game. Well, I'm always yellow. No, but I want to be yellow.
That's number one. I think the other one was in Valhalla, you have a board. And I think they just had extra space on the punch board, right? Because otherwise, why would you do it? They just have this board where all your tokens go and your warriors die. They don't need to go anywhere, but they go on this board that sits next to your main board. It's like, wow. But it's fun. It's fun. We're at a point in the hobby where we can talk about useless components. Doesn't really matter. Not really. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I suppose as we kind of get to the end of our chat, then, Chris, we always ask what are you excited for? What's coming up? Like game wise, event wise, anything wise. What are you really looking forward to?
Game wise, event wise. So event-wise, definitely the Expo again next year, the UK Games Expo. I had an absolute blast this year, and can't wait to go back and meet people in person again, and we learned a huge amount from last year, so hopefully we can also utilize that this year and stuff, and hopefully run some events like Top Score like we were doing this year and stuff. So definitely looking forward to that. Game wise, what's the most recent one I backed? I think I backed Cosmoctopus,
I've seen
which
that
was on
as well.
Kickstarter recently. And I must admit, the main reason I backed it, I don't know a huge amount about the game yet, except that if you're an early backer, you got a plushy octopus thrown in, and I was like, "Yep,
sold."
Okay, sold." Yeah,
they know what I like.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Plushy octopuses.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that's probably the game. I can't think of any others at the moment. I mean, I like one thing that's always been I've always been keen to try actually is like the Resident Evil games. So I've played the video games a lot, and I've heard good things about the board games. So I'd like to try that.
A few of the group have tried Resident Evil 2. It's Steamforged Games, isn't it? I think do it.
I think so.
Yeah. They've got 2. I think they enjoyed 2, but I think the first one, which came out after the second board game, it's the way they've done it. I think.
Right.
I think the first one's supposed to be the best one.
Okay.
So based on the first game, which is actually my favourite of the Resident Evil series anyway.
Yep.
And lots of good memories in 1996 playing that on PlayStation.
Same. Yeah. I distinctly remember my dad going to the Virgin Megastores, was it?
Yeah.
And he went to the desk with me, and they asked him, "Is this for you?" And he said, "Yes," and it definitely wasn't for him. It's definitely for me, because I guess at the time it's an 18+ game, right? So
it was. I mean, you look at it now and you go, "Really?" Because, I think the graphics at the time were cutting edge.
That was
cutting
height
edge.
of
32-bit graphics.
Ooh,
that's the best.
Yeah, fond memories. Yeah, I can picture it definitely much better than I'm sure it is. Like in my head, it looked amazing. I'm sure if I go back to it now, it'll be like, wow, how did I even...
Because I replayed the first one, the remastered version, which I think came out on GameCube in the noughties at some point. So I ended up playing that version on Xbox.
Okay.
So I kind of gone back through the game going, oh yeah, this is really awesome. Look how great it looks. Obviously, it didn't look anything like that. The controls have been improved. There's less tank controls, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I could talk about Resident Evil for another hour.
I
probably shouldn't.
I mean, how about you guys? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, I'm playing Everdell in about half an hour, actually. So we've just bought the big old storage box, which is just so far up my street. I'm halfway down the road. And we're not going to mix in the 2 expansions tonight because we're playing. We're playing with a new player, so we've figured just keep it simple. But then me and Kerley are going to play sometime sort of next week with the expansions and see what that adds to it. So that's.
I've never played it. It definitely it looks fantastic on the table, right? But I've never actually played it yet.
It's really good. I think it's got a lot more crunch to it than you could think, perhaps just by looking at the cutesy little figures. But it plays really well on.
Quite a tough game as well. To get what you need.
It plays really well on. I think it's Steam that you can play it on.
Oh, is it?
Curly's been playing it online. And it plays really well on there. So, awesome. But it's got the Evertree. I know that Adrian is not a fan of the Evertree.
He's not.
But I just think it's lovely.
It is lovely.
Not to like?
On the table, it's really nice.
It's great, absolutely. It may or may not be useless, but I don't
when you sat behind it or near it.
Well, just make sure you sit at the other end of the table.
Well, when it's your game, you can position yourself where you like. So. I think for me, I've got tomorrow? Tricarion. Love Tricarion.
Okay.
So that's tomorrow, and we're also going through ISS Vanguard as well. Which we're really enjoying actually. That's I just want to keep playing it, but work gets in the way. I've got kids to look after.
Is it like a campaign one? Do you continue? Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those, and I kind of backed it and I was really excited, and then the horror of going, I've got to organise a campaign now. You know what it's like, and you think, how many games is it? Is it like 8, 16? Well, what is it? And everything's competing for time. Games, let alone life. So then I thought, oh, do I want this? And then it arrived, got excited again, busted it out.
You got the rulebook out, didn't you?
Got the rulebook, watched the vid.
2 hours later, yeah.
And I actually played the tutorial myself, and then I thought, oh my God, this is really fun. I got really immersed because the immersion in it's very, very good with the app and the audio logs and things. Yep. So you're kind of fully in this thing. Yep. And I thought, no, and I did think, shall I play this solo? Shall I play it with people? And then I ended up playing it with people, and now we're only 2 games in. So
but you're hooked.
But everyone had really good stuff to say, didn't they? Want to keep playing it.
Nice.
And get through it. So basically, it reminds me of like Mass Effect and XCOM.
Oh, awesome!
So it's got that kind of Mass Effect traveling around the solar system, exploring planets, and then the XCOM base management, research, tech, production, engineering, all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very. Ooh,
and it's cooperative. It's cooperative.
Fully co-op, yeah.
Awesome.
We all play like sections on the starship. So I'm actually the recon section. So I'm like the scouts. So I'm in charge of like traveling around in the big starship and make those decisions. And
nice.
Your husband Kerley is the head of science. We've got head of engineering. We've got head of security. So we've all got our roles to play. And it's good fun. It's
It's the kind of game I could definitely see myself getting hooked into, but it's the same kind of deal, right? Is that you would need to I think for me, I'd need to plan all 16 sessions to be like, we are going to finish this. This is like every date that we have. Yeah.
And we've already had can we do Monday? Can't do Monday. Can we do Friday? Yeah, I can, but I can't.
3 weeks later. Yeah.
Life just gets in the way, doesn't it? Life just gets in the way.
But there we go. But I think event-wise, Essen.
Oh, I cannot. I'm learning German on Duolingo, so I'm on Unit 6 now.
Just need street waffles.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very different experience to UK Games Expo. I think, that's it. I liked both for different reasons. One of the downsides, I think, of Essen was that was one of the benefits of UK Games Expo is that when it finishes, everyone goes and plays games together in Hall 3. But with Essen, it kind of finishes and everyone just goes back to their hotels. And I think there are some hotels that they play into the hours and stuff. But that was the only.
They do it the Premier in, don't they? The Premier. There's a big collective that does that there.
Yeah, but like in terms of like sheer amount of stuff at Essen, it was a little bit overwhelming at times. But I mean, I still had stuff to see on day 4 that I still wanted to see and stuff. So it's very good.
Yeah, we've got that in the pipeline. I'm excited for that. Really excited.
Cannot wait. So great. Okay, I think we've hit the end then, Chris. So really, just a massive thank you for your time this evening and chatting to the couple of us. And
it's been really great.
Yeah, lovely
hearing
to meet
your opinions about stuff.
We love it though. We love when we chat to designers or anyone kind of in the industry and hobby, because it just gives us that sneaky peek behind the curtain. You know, we play a lot of games, and a lot of games hits our tables every week, every month. So it's nice just to kind of see how these things get created and what's the kind of genesis of some of this stuff. So no, massive thank you. Really appreciate it.
No worries, my pleasure. Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's been great. I could talk board games for hours. Board games and video games for hours as well.
We all do.
Yeah, we do. Well, when your Roll and Write in Devon gets moving on, then give us a shout.
I'll let you know.
Yep. That'd be great.
Yeah,
awesome.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
And now our final turn is wrapping up, and thank you again, Chris, and giving up your time to speak to us. It's been fantastic. So if you really enjoyed the show and you want to kind of get involved, please obviously like, subscribe and review on your podcast player of choice. And if you want to get in contact, you've got so many ways to do it. And as always, you've got email, players@whoseturn.co.uk. You've got our Facebook page, Whose Turn Is It Anyway Podcast. You've got our Instagram page @Whose Turn Podcast and TikTok @Whose Turn Is It Anyway. And we'll be back again, no doubt in a week or so, with another episode. So again, see you later. Bye.